All right, Frank Vogel is the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns. A few years removed from winning a championship with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now Frank takes over a championship contender down in Phoenix, and Frank kind enough to give me a few minutes here. Frank, you were in the mix for a handful of head coaching jobs this offseason, and it was such a strange cycle, wasn't it? Because usually when head coaching jobs open up, it's with rebuilding teams. This coaching cycle, you had Phoenix, you had Philadelphia, you had Milwaukee, just to name a few. Toronto is a team that is competing for something. Did it feel odd to kind of go into this coaching cycle and interview with teams that were not talking about a 3 or 4 year plan, but a 1 or 2 year plan?
Yeah, it definitely was a unique situation, for any coach that was involved with these teams that legitimately are championship contenders right now, in particular, Phoenix, Milwaukee, and Philly. It's unique from that perspective. But the thing about my background is, I have experience taking over a very young team in Indiana and having success with them, taking them on some deep playoff runs, and also experience with a win now situation when I took over with the Lakers, with a situation where LeBron and AD were united, and we really felt like that was a championship robust type of season. So we had success there. I feel like I've done both of those, but I really am compelled by both types of situations. The long term rebuild, or I should say the ability to work with a young core and teach the game to those guys, and to really build them up into a powerhouse, the way we did in Indiana. That's almost equally compelling to me as taking over a team that has a chance to win it all. And I was asked about expectations, and for me, I'm going to set my own internal expectations super high. So if that's how it is externally, then so be it. I'll rock with that. So I love this situation because we do have that ability. It is where I most recently just came from, and just thrilled to get started.
You won a championship with the Lakers in 2020. A couple of years later, you were out of a job there. Nick Nurse won a championship with Toronto. A few years later, he's out of a job. Mike Budenholzer won a championship in Milwaukee. A couple of years later, he's out of a job. What do you make of kind of the climate nowadays where the leash seems really short on NBA coaches?
Yeah, it's I don't know what can be done about it, but I really hope that something is done about it. Because it's difficult on the coaching profession. You know what I mean? And it's a challenge for all of us. We all know, going in, nobody's feeling sorry for us, first, but we all know going in that, there's going to be high expectations. And, if a team falls short of those expectations, the coaches is in the front of the line, in the firing line. It's an unfortunate part of the business. We all do go into it, knowing that's a part of it. But I just hope that the models that we're seeing right now in the NBA Finals, with the way the Denver Nuggets operate and the Miami Heat operate, the continuity of having a program and a culture, I just think there's extraordinary value in that, and the roster, will change from year to year. But if you got a system and a leadership group that that has had success, I think there's extraordinary value in keeping that leadership group together as the roster changes from year to year.
Yeah, you would hope that the two most successful teams in the NBA right now would be a model for everybody else. And Eric Spoelstra's been the coach of that team since 2008. Mike Malone's got a long tenure in Denver. I mean, both those guys, multiple times could have lost their job, but, the front office, ownership of their teams said, no, this is our guy. We're sticking with him, and it paid off. So it does behoove. There's a track record of success if you follow that path all the way to the finish line. With respect to Phoenix, when you started interviewing for that job, take me through kind of what the process was like. I mean, what was Matt Ishbia and James Jones looking for in a coach, and why was this a good fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the early messaging I got from Matt and from James is that they valued my experience. Like I spoke about earlier, both having coached a young and developing team up into a playoff contender, and a championship contender, and then also taking over a team that had an opportunity to win it right away, was compelling to them. And I know that the program building nature of a coaching job, every job is different, but they were looking for someone to come in and build a program with them. And I was very drawn to that, because that's what I hope for. When I take over a coaching job is that there's going to be an opportunity for a long-term partnership, and that was communicated to me. But they're also very very interested in the spirit of collaboration. They really wanted someone that was going to be a good teammate and a really good partner to them. And I've always prided myself in that aspect of the coaching profession, and it's not always easy to do with the highs and lows, and dealing with the players that come and go. But to me, that's the basketball integrity that I've always taken a great deal of pride in. So I felt like I was a great fit, but those were some of the things that they communicated early on that they were looking for.
I go back and forth, or did go back and forth, Frank, on how good a coaching job Phoenix was. Because on one hand, you've got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who are arguably the top 1-2 scoring combination in the NBA and probably will be going into next season. On the other hand, Kevin seems to defy time every year, but he is on the other side of 35 at this point. Chris Paul getting closer to 40. It does seem like with this team, the window to win is relatively small. How did you see that? How did you see kind of the window to win with this group?
Well, obviously there's an immediate window with the guys you just mentioned. They are toward that part of their career or whatever. But this is a bigger thing for us. I think we're going to have an opportunity to compete for championships for years to come. Obviously, we're going to go all in on and trying to get the job done this year. I actually love the fit of the current roster. With Devin and Kevin being just the elite scorers on the wing, but the bookends of DeAndre and Chris Paul, a Hall of Fame point guard and a really, really talented center that could be an all-star level center for us. I think those pieces really fit. So, I think there's an obvious window of what this team as currently constructed can do this year. But, with Matt Ishbia as our owner, he's expressed an interest of, let's go after it with everything we have with this core and this group for now. But there's going to be, times where, we move on to the next phase at some point. And, the intent to put this franchise in position to win a championship is going to be just as high then as it is now. So I think this is just going to be honestly the best era of Phoenix basketball, Phoenix Suns basketball that this community has seen, not just in this short-term window of the group of guys that we have.
You had your opening press conference this week, introductory press conference, and as it is in the NBA, immediately got thrust into the transaction cycle with the reporting this week about, Chris Paul and his status with the team. Some of the reporting suggesting that he could be traded or outright released before we get to July 1st. What's your understanding at this point about where Chris stands with this group?
Yeah, well, obviously there was a misunderstanding yesterday. We did not waive Chris, as was reported, and but there's ongoing conversations about all of the options to improve the roster. Which include trades, a waiving of certain players, and retaining the guys that we have back. Those are just ongoing conversations. But it wasn't completely accurate what was reported yesterday, and. I personally, I've communicated with Chris and feel strongly about the opportunity to work with him. He's someone I've just had an immense respect for over the years. Not only just his game, his toughness, IQ. He's just one of the great winners our game has ever seen. And, I feel like, there's just a real a bigger picture to him having an opportunity with this group, to take another last run to get that championship for him. And he's done so much for this team the last few years. So I'm really hopeful to have an opportunity to work with him this next year, and I think he can really help us get over the top.
You've got a great track record with big men going back to your days with Indiana, of course, with Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. You won a championship in LA. DeAndre Ayton is an interesting figure in Phoenix. I don't think it's a stretch to say there's been some toxicity there over the last couple of years, some issues between DeAndre and the organization. What's your view on his role with the team, and how does the way you coach, how do you think that will maximize him?
Yeah, well, I have history with having great success with the elite rim protectors and with bigs in general. And I feel like I can take a lot of those lessons and use them to help restore DeAndre to a place of prominence in this organization and in this league. He obviously has an immense amount of talent, and the talent fits the way I have played, throughout my career. So, I think he can be an elite, dominant defensive center in my system, and I think there's an extraordinary amount of growth possible for what he does and brings to the table on the offensive side of the ball. So, he's got to own his part of whatever friction might have been here prior to this season. But I feel really, really strongly that I can position him to have a hell of a bounce back year for us.
Yeah, it feels like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like your defenses, when they've been really good, have always had that dominant big. Like that dominant big's been the anchor, whether it's been Roy and how he defended the rim in Indiana during those conference finals teams, both AD and Dwight with the success they had in Los Angeles. Does the way you coach defense, does it need someone like Ayton or otherwise to be in that middle?
Yeah, well, it definitely helps. It definitely improves our odds of being an elite defense. But the one thing about that, Chris, is the league has changed so much, obviously, with the modern NBA and playing 5 shooters at once, that there are times where, they can put a lineup out there that plays your center off the floor. You know what I mean? So I don't want to get pigeonholed into saying it's a complete necessity, because, you have to be able to play with smaller lineups, or you have to be able to position those elite shot blockers in a way that they can guard the 3-point line and not get played off the floor. And I really believe the defensive system that we used in LA was very different than the one that we used in Indiana, and it was an evolution to match up with the way the modern NBA plays offensive basketball. And I think there are situations where we can keep him on the floor and minimize any potential damage of a team trying to small ball us. I just think there's ways you can do it, and there's protections that we have built into our defensive scheme, that I did not have, quite frankly, when I was in Indiana. So I feel strongly about what DeAndre can do for us. But we're intent that you can get the job done, even with a smaller lineup if needed.
The last thing for you is you coached an all-time great in LA with LeBron James, and now you get the chance to coach another all-time great in Kevin Durant in Phoenix. I mean, how different or maybe even similar is your approach to coaching those two guys going to be?
I would say that it's going to be similar, honestly. And, it's just the way you should handle a star player. I think doesn't really change a whole bunch with regard to who that star player is. It's a partnership. They're going to require ownership in a lot of the decisions that we're making. I learned a lot of lessons, not just in working with LeBron, but also being around Rob Pelinka and Kurt Rambis, and their involvement with Kobe and Shaq over those years. And honestly, even beyond that, with some of the other stars that the Lakers have had in their program. So, that was an extremely valuable lesson for me, working with LeBron, but also being around, those guys with the Lakers that have seen so many greats. And I think I can apply those lessons to really make KD feel great about what we're doing and his role and his place in everything that we're about to do.
Are you going to miss your year off in Southern California? Because I ran into you a couple of times, Frank, out there, and you looked like you were living your best life during that 1 year, during your year off.
Yeah, it was very relaxed. I'm certainly not as relaxed as I was, throughout my sabbatical year in LA. Mostly because I really just got an opportunity to rest, recharge the batteries, and enjoy being around the family, full time. Because you miss so much. When you're in the trenches and when you're coaching, and certainly that's going to be time that I missed, but a lot of people don't get to have a year like I had last year. So I'm very grateful for that.
Hey, you got to get rid of that weathered look that comes with coaching the Lakers for so many years and the pressure cooker that exists in Los Angeles. Well, welcome back, Frank. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me.
Yeah, Chris, great catching up always, my man.
Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is the new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while I'm recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at Chris Mannix to get notified when I go live.